Hello, I'm Dr. Esmail Koushanpour. I'm an emeritus professor of physiology at Northwestern University, Feinberg School of Medicine. I retired in 1999 after 36 years of teaching and doing research at that university. After 9/11, I have been involved with doing interfaith. We did that before, but much more intensively, and I was invited to give lectures at a number of places, at churches, synagogues, and even mosques. And the purpose of my discussion with them to kind of bring the Muslim out from being hidden in their own homes and become more available to talk to people, because I found that the problem with what is happening after 9/11 is that very few people knew anything about Islam. And the hijackers managed to do a good job of blemishing the record of every Muslim. And so it was necessary to talk about it. So I spent a lot of time doing that. And of course, I had talked here at Raymond Foundation on religion and violence a few years back. And so this was something that I've decided to do over the last 10 years. And we had interfaith relationship at ICC, Islamic Cultural Center. And we even had a synagogue come into our center and do their worship there while they were building a synagogue half a mile south of the Islamic Cultural Center. In the course of that 8 years that I was executive director of Islamic Cultural Center, I was also vice chair of the Council of Islamic Organization that represent the interest of 500,000 Muslims in the Chicagoland area. Thank you very much. Peace be with you. On the Sunday before, we had the first faith walk in Northbrook. It's never happened before. And since we're the only mosque in Northbrook, there are many synagogues. We have a good relationship with them. In fact, one of the synagogues, which is half a mile south of us, use our facilities to do their worship for 8 months, not too long before that. And the people were coming in. There were a lot of people coming to the mosque. And some of the people I knew from interfaith, they were surprised that many people are coming to the mosque. Well, I said, I have a simple explanation, because there's only one mosque in Northbrook, and people are coming in, want to know what goes on in the mosque. Of course, everybody would tour the mosque, and the other reason for doing that, because going to the mosque was the last place in the touring the other houses of worship, and if you make it to the mosque, you get a prize, and the prize was that you would get a pizza. Not from us, from another vendor. So we were really enjoying the fact that there's been a lot of people coming in, and our interfaith relationship seems to be working well, and until that Tuesday. Now, normally I have lecture to give. It so happens that somebody else was going to replace me for other reason. We have a change in the curriculum. So we have a basic scientists give their lectures, and then a clinical person give a lecture. And normally we sit in one another's lectures just to see what goes on. This time, he felt that I've heard him before. There's no reason for me to come early, because the class starts at 8 o'clock, and I'm in Mundelein. You have to leave at 6:30 to get down there by 8. So I had the luxury of watching television, and I was watching Diane Sawyer on Channel 7. And we were having breakfast, and I saw the image of the first plane. And for me, it was very shocking, because you have to remember that as an immigrant to this country, nobody invited me to come here. I did. And I became citizen in 1963. And I love this country. I want to go to the Army to serve. They told me that your classification 5, and the people in the Army headquarters laughed at me and said, everybody wants to get out of Army. What are you doing? Want to get into the Army? I said, well, you know, I never served in armed forces. I want to do something. They said, well, you're doing something. And we sat down there, my wife and I, and they started gazing at this building. The building had a meaning for us because in 1983, prior to going to Germany on a Fulbright, we went to New York, visiting New York. I have actually studied at Columbia University in New York, so I knew New York very well. And we went to the top of this building and took pictures from the top and the bottom. And we have a copy of those pictures. It was kind of like you're living in an illusion. It hit us very hard. Could not figure out who could have done that in his right mind. And then, of course, watching people jumping off, and then the building fall apart. As I was sitting in here trying to answer the question that, Bob, you were raising, a lot of things came to my mind. And one thing that I thought, I may be wrong, may tie some of these together, is this refrain that we heard so much, why do they hate us? And it isn't that the people hate the United States. They don't really like to see us supporting these dictators. And Shah was really a dictator, and he was actually a playboy. It's well known that every Friday they will have some ladies brought from France, and he was married at the time. And of course, nobody would say anything. And they had every building that you can imagine was confiscated by his father, and they had the ownership. So people had nothing. When I left in Iran in 1952, they were trying to put piping in the ground for clean water. And I went back there 20 years later, and they were doing the same, they still were doing the same thing. And I went there at the invitation of the Shah to see if I would accept presidency of Tehran University. And I met with him in his office, in this huge palace. In front of the stairway, at that time, there was a huge statue of the Shah made from steel. In 1996, I was invited to go back to Iran. I did not really approve of the government they have there, to give some lectures. And as part of my being there, and a few other people from this country, they took us for a tour of that palace, where that statue was. The statue was cut in half. The top part was not there. The bottom half was there. And then they escorted us up to where the Shah's office was, where I actually talked to him. And on the wall, you couldn't go in, but on the side, you could see the score of the pool that he had played with somebody. He liked billiard. And it was me, himself, maybe 5, and so-and-so 1. I mean, he referred to himself Shah and Shah. Interest of people wasn't there. So we supported these people, and people haven't forgotten that. And when Eisenhower came to Iran, after he was elected, they could not drop a pin. Millions of people out there praising him, waving American flag, because he did something great for Iran. He forced the Russian to leave the northern part of Iran. So people don't forget these things. It's a fact that we should be doing, in my judgment, what made this country great. Our principle of democracy, which really was practiced by many of the presidents in the past. So we don't really do that. And as an American, I love to see us to stand for democracy, for what is good. What is good for us, it should be good for the other people. That we don't really say. It's only talked about it here. We never promoted overseas. And you have all of these problems that you're now seeing around the world. Every one of these people who are not willing to leave, we supported them. It was our dollar, our tax dollar that kept them in office. They wouldn't be in office without having an army that was paid by us and now ruling the people. And the people realize that they've got nothing, and these guys are getting millions of dollars saved someplace, and they have nothing. So I think the day we stop doing that, changing our policy to more realistic, I think things will be different.